Welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, where we look beyond surface behaviour to better understand how horses think, learn and respond. I'm Jenny Langley, joined by Australian horseman Mark Langley, as we answer questions from our online members and discuss alternative practical approaches to training that prioritises emotional balance, clarity and trust. This week we're going to be talking to Mark about bringing a horse back into work and the tips and exercises that he can suggest for a whole load of different scenarios that will just help with that particular situation. So Mark, your first question is from Emma, and she's new to the online membership. She's just brought home a 13-year-old off the track thoroughbred gelding who's been spelled for the last 6 months. When she first got him about 4 years ago, he was incredibly shut down to the point where he would stand there and literally shut his eyes and pretend you weren't there. He had huge anxiety that came out mostly as him chewing on his tongue constantly. He ended up with a callus on the side of his tongue. He chewed it so much. With a lot of time, she managed to move past that. Her question is, now that they've brought him home and she wants to start riding him again, how would you suggest, what would she start with so that she can set him up for success? What would you suggest that she start with for training to bring him back into work again?
Ooh, would I bring him back into work? Would I bring him back into work, or would I... Work to him is going to be pretty tough because he's had a tough life by the sounds of it. So anything you do that relates to riding could cause, him to sort of have bad memories. So these types of horses, there's a fair bit of re-education you need to do. So, and if that's what you mean by bringing him back into work, then that's good. I'd say, does he understand the leading? Does he understand the reins? Does he understand this? Do I need to put a belly rope on him? How much do I need to teach him? Do I nearly need to do everything that should have been done when he was started with a horse that's already got race trauma on top? So, that's how serious this matter becomes. And I don't want to scare people off working their horses, but so the first thing I would do before I even think about anything else is, and this is not the same podcast, but I was just talking about horses that are scared of goats and, big mobs versus small mobs of goats. And I'm just thinking about the same answer for your horse, and it's completely different scenarios. The first thing I look at when I look at a horse is, can I adjust it? Can I adjust what I would call a fixation? So a horse that chews their tongue with anxiety and has post-traumatic stress syndrome will have strong thoughts. They're the sort of horse that would pace a fence or scream at other horses, or when they're anxious, whatever they do, they'd get very strong and very fixated because there's a lot of trouble in there. So the first thing you're trying to do is create a soft, adjustable mindset, which is like that green zone, that perfect learning zone, and then they go into like a relaxed, perfect zone, which is they can rest and relax in that same mindset where they're not just shutting down and hiding away. So the first thing I'd be looking at is, how connected is he with you and people? Can you walk up to him in a hurry? Does he get nervous? Is he standing calmly under a tree, but when you put a holder on him, does he start to fidget and get anxious because of that? All those little things that you got to look at, that his level of safety and feeling safe around people has to be worked on. And that all starts from just walking out and catching him, maybe just, sometimes walking up, get a little connection with him, touch and go, leave him alone for a bit, and then just say, hey, we're on the same page, I'm here to help you, and then you work through that. So I'd be, looking at those things. And then when you put a holder on him, is he a bit more fractious when the holder's on him? If he is, and he's inadjustable, back to that inadjustable mindset, if he looks over there, can I interrupt him and he softens? All those things until he's very soft, very centered and following a feel and and pretty quiet with that, and he's connected with you. That's really important. So if you find that hard in itself, then everything above that will be hard. So he's got to nearly own that mindset when he's with you. You don't have to keep reminding him, say, stop doing that, be aware of my space, stop thinking about the horses over there, all those things. Can he just be calm and centered? And then I'd work on pretty well everything. So when I do an assessment, I can do these assessments fairly quickly at a clinic because I do it all the time. It's like, okay, this horse is scared of people coming up to it on the right side or the left side, or people are in a hurry, or it's been lunged 50 times. So every time I put my hand out like this to guide it over there, it thinks it's been lunged, so it runs on a circle. It's got a preloaded hindquarter because of this, and this. So I'm assessing all that all the time. So until I've done that assessment, there's a clinic when a horse is coming, like a racehorse like yours, it's coming back into work, and I say, I wouldn't be stepping on it for a bit. I'd be teaching it this, and this, because without these, this other stuff's not even worth trying yet. So get a green mindset. Get the horse centered and soft, being able to lead good again, being able to take him away from the other horses a bit and bring him back to the other horses without him getting stressed, and just have him relatively calm for a while, and just master that. And once you've mastered that, then maybe ask another question and we'll see where we go from there. Because it can be, if we can go too far ahead, then we're back to square one again.
And well done for getting him to the point that you've got him to. I think that's a huge achievement. And yeah, kudos to you. You mentioned ulcers in that, Mark. The next horse that we're going to talk about is a Palomino Whaler who you've met at a clinic, and ulcers have come into part of the problem with this particular horse. This is a Palomino Whaler called Jack. You picked him up as being quite shut down, and you were able to demonstrate that his supposed proprioception weakness, as diagnosed by a vet, was not muscle or nervous system, but actually related to his emotional state. You opened him up and he became a much more sensitive horse subsequently. This is a question that's come on Maura, who's here in Australia. So since that particular clinic, he's been going really well with his training, and he is with a trainer. He, though, has been dogged by recurrent gastric ulcers. And today she got a diagnosis with another lot. So this is the 4th round of ulcers. Maura suspects that even though he's taking most things in his stride, he may still be carrying worry, perhaps as a result of being late gelded, because he was a working stallion and now he doesn't have a herd or a job. She knows it's a big ask, but do you have any advice to give her on his handling? He is waiting to see a specialist. She wants to sort of look in to see if he has any retained testicular tissue that might be messing with his hormones. But she says overall he's a lovely horse, and he's quiet under saddle, he's engaged and present. It's just the recurring ulcers that she just thinks could be an underlying question. And she just finishes saying, sorry for the long question, but she knows that you are the only person out of many professionals, including vets, that could see his problems as emotional, and she's forever grateful for that diagnosis.
I guess that's thank you very much for that. That's the diagnosis that I'm searching for all the time. Sometimes I get told a lot that the body causes the mind to be stressed. So if there's something in the body, then the mind's stressed, and that's the case. It is the case when it comes to chronic pain and nerves that are trapped and stuff like that from injuries and stuff. But I see a lot of cases where the mind is shutting down the body in some form or another. And there's so many emotional coping mechanisms that horses do through stress and lots of different things that sets them on a pathway to bad posture. Sometimes, bad mobility, all sorts of things. And this particular horse, I think, he wasn't able to access his hindquarter properly. That was the diagnosis, through nerves and different things. And I said, I think he's frozen. Well, I didn't think. I knew he was frozen and shut down. And I said, I can't tell until he stops being so like a guarded, frozen, shut down state. So I worked on the guarded, sort of shutting out frozen state that he had, and then his body unlocked, and he was completely aware of every part of his body and where it was and how to pick his feet up in the right way. And it was funny because once he did, he held his feet up in the air for some time and then put them down like he found his legs again. It was quite funny to watch. But then I put him through some barrels, and he whittled through the barrels and around the barrels, knew exactly where his ribs were, and like a snake going through like an obstacle course. So, and it was nice to see. He opened up fairly easy compared to some horses, but then in a saying that, like, he's got ulcers that are underlying that are still there and stuff, so he's obviously carrying that some emotional baggage and still with him. And there's a triangle that I talk about with ulcers, and I refer it to a horse in Western Australia who's a very sensitive warm blood, I think, who's one of those horses that I believe has like a sensory processing that everything has to be right. So this is the triangle of rightness for ulcers. So you've got three corners to the triangle. One corner is food, diet. The right diet, the right amount of food, the right things, not too many, not too much of this, not too much of that, whatever that may be. And that diet will encompass, I'd say, the worm burdens and all that sort of stuff that goes with what they're fed and what you put in their mouth to help them and stuff like that, and the paddock that they're in, sort of thing. So that would be nutrition. We'll call it nutrition. So nutrition is one corner. And then you've got education. So education encompasses the riding, anything you're doing with that horse that you're doing with the horse that takes it away from its herd and takes it somewhere else. So that can be also competition, anything. I just call it education when we're working with our horses. Okay, so there's that corner, that part of the triangle, and there's the other one, which is free time, herd. It's time when it's on its own. So some horses, people are trying to get the nutrition right with all the time, and they feed them all the right foods, have the hay out there, the right types of hay and everything, and then they also give them ulcer treatment to get everything right back inside their stomach to get rid of the ulcers, because that's going to fix it, because it's all about the stomach. And getting that balance back in the stomach to get rid of the ulcers. So they're doing all the nutrition, the ulcer guard, the whatever they get the vets giving them. But the training's out, so the stress of the training causes enough bad acids inside the horse to fight against all that good stuff they're doing with the food. The training's right, the food's right. Wow, I'm on the right path here. Why is my horse still getting ulcers? Well, the other 23 hours a day when it's out in the paddock, it's stressed. So that can cause a big thing too. So in this horse in Western Australia, those three things had to be right. You couldn't have one out. If the food was out, she'd get ulcers. And if you still had the training in the same herd, everything fine. If suddenly something happened in a diet changed, she'd get ulcers. If the training changed or she went to a few more competitions and the food was perfect and the paddock was perfect, she'd get ulcers. If she changed adjustments and she had to settle into a new herd and you had the other two perfect, she'd get ulcers. And so that's what I say to everybody is, how is your horse feeling 24 hours a day, and how is its nutrition 24 hours a day every day? And you might be able to find the missing link there. It could be something to do with his paddock life. And I remember you telling me when he was shut down, he wouldn't settle into his adjustment centre, and you nearly were going to take him out until we opened him up, and then he went down, went and had a sleep when he went back, and he rested in his paddock. So that was a big change in education that made him have a big shift, because there's such a big shift. Then when he went back, he rested, but that shift's only, he's still going to go back to going, actually, I still don't like this place and I feel stressed here, though we've made a shift in him, okay? So whatever, you've got to look at those three things and try and work that out, and that's all I can answer with the ulcers.
Nicole would like some tips on bringing a horse back into work for pleasure riding. She's got a quarter horse cross paint who's been out of work for nearly 8 months with lameness and hoof issues. He's all fixed up, but she's just not quite sure where to start again. She has begun with in-hand walks and groundwork, and she'd like to check if she's on the right track.
Yeah, just to sort of look at the in-hand walks and stuff to bring the horse back into work. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do to get your horse back into work. But with your in-hand walks, if your horse is... There's two things you can do when you're taking your horse out and about just to see if it's okay out and about again, is can it lead away from me sort of 10 metres so it processes the environment on its own, not just being in my space and avoiding it, and also can it lead out in front so it can like I'm riding it. So one of the things I do if I bring a horse back into work would be, if you've watched some of my long reining videos and you get the horse that's really soft and loose in the long reins, take it out and long rein it, take it out, because then you're safe walking behind your horse, but your horse is still leading as it would if you were riding it by being ahead of you. So take it out, and if the horse is really struggling being out with you, ahead of you in new environments, then that's what you're going to have to deal with under saddle, and whether you're ready to deal with it under saddle. So the long reining gets it to process the environment with you beside it, behind it, like you're out on a trail ride, and it also gets it to process the pressure of the reins, the backing up, the moving in tight spaces of the reins, moving around inside the long reins. So that sort of ticks that box. Then you go back through, okay, how is it with girth pressure, belly rope leading, how is it carrying the saddle at speed, things like that, walk, trot, canter, all those things you work on. Can I jump up beside it? Can I stand on a mounting block? Can I walk beside it and jog beside it, tap on the saddle? Can I pull on the saddle? All those sort of things. If there's anything missing that the horse is sort of, doesn't understand, you can do all that in the yard, so that the horse getting used to you and your pressure and all that sort of stuff you can do in the yards. The processing outside you can do in the long range, so when the horse can go out on a bit of a trail ride in the long range and come back and not be bouncing off the walls and be okay with everything, and the horse is not scared of you, pulling on it, pushing on it, carrying the saddle, standing above it, all that. There's so many things you can do. Then, step up and ride around the yards for a while and see how it's going. And then at least you already know what it's like when you open the gate and it goes out into new environment. So then at least you'll feel a bit safer and the horse has at least been through it. So you don't have to take as long as it does to break in the horse to do all that, but it can be done over a shorter period. But it keeps you safe and it gives the horse a bit of mental elasticity and yourself a bit more. It's also fittens them up a little bit too if they've been out with various lamenesses.
Alana from Queensland in Australia has an off-the-track thoroughbred as well, and she's been using your online resources since she got this horse about 8 months ago. So she's been bringing this horse back into work, focusing on groundwork, leading, and getting her to cast out in front of her. She's also been getting in the saddle just at a walk and trying to replicate what they're doing on the ground, looking for softness. She's found that sometimes she gets impatient and she tosses her head a little. Alana is worried. Does this mean that her groundwork is not effective yet, or should she be expecting some unwanted behaviours in the saddle regardless?
I'd say both. Both is the answer. Like, there would be a little change in your groundwork when you get on the saddle. It would be a bit different. I think sometimes also what people do when they're on the ground, they're a bit more confident and they tend to be a bit clearer. Now, some people are more confident on the ground and they tend to be more bully, and their horse is a bit more frightened of them. But when they get on their back, they go, "Ooh, I'm scared I might die on this horse," and they go a bit more passive. So you don't want to be bully passive. That's kind of a bad scenario, because you're going to have the horse a bit frightened of you when you sit on it. But then also the horse is going to realise that there's less clarity there, so it's going to go, "Hang on a minute, you've got my number on the ground, but I've got your number when you're on me." So you don't want to be in that situation. But there is a real situation of we can offer more clarity on the ground because we're a bit clearer. We hold the rope a bit more solid when we want to say that boundary's that's a boundary and stuff like that. And the horse realizes there's more clarity there. So more clarity will mean more confidence and less I'm going to fight boundaries and less vagueness. So, so if we sit on and we're a bit nervous and the horse kind of gets a little agitated, we might sort of go, I'm going to loosen up because I don't want you to rear, I don't want you to do anything. And the horse goes, well, hang on, this reine's operating differently when it's on the ground to under saddle. So that can be a lack of clarity thing, where the groundwork's not quite matching the ridden work. And some horses are a little bit more irritated with just having us on the in the saddle, and they're a bit nervous with us above them, and when they were raced or whatever, it was just sort of jammed and whatever. So yeah, there will be a bit of a settling in process. The biggest thing I can say is to help a horse like yours getting back into work. Like the last question in the long reins, put your horse in the long reins, put it in the yards and do some, I'm backing up now, I'm holding the rope this way, you're moving around this way, you're backing up, and get it used to the boundaries and the pressure of long reins till it's really loose at moving around inside the reins. Maybe do that for half an hour, take it around the yard, get it really, really loose and soft, maybe an hour, and until the horse has done all its fighting and pushing and unbalancing, and then it's on the way down and it's kind of loose and got a really good mind. And then right at that point, just get on your horse. Instead of get on your horse at the start of a lesson, get on it at the end of the lesson when it's gone through all its probing, its pressing. And then you get on it and you imagine that I'm going to hold this rope like the long rein. I'm just going to hold it there and you're just going to follow that round and follow that round and just get it really leading good in those one rein starts, because with that head shake and everything like that, linking that lead rein to leading properly where the horse searches and follows a feel in that rope is really, really important, okay? So I want you to think about when my horse is on the way down, I'm going to get on and I'm going to pull on that rope just like it's a long rein. I'm going to commit to it like it's anchored and the horse is going to follow it around. Don't go, you can do it still at a slow rein speed, but I think what happens on the ground, we go, I'm pulling the rope like this and I'm clear, and then we get on, we just touch it and go, hey, would you like to do this? And it changes, like I said before, the clarity changes. And yeah, have the horse real soft before you get on them, and maybe only give them a 10-minute ride at the end and then say, good, we'll finish on that nice ride. And then after a while, maybe a week of riding at the end of the lesson, then start looking at riding at the start of the lesson.
She just also wanted to ask about the reins that you use with a side pull and the best reins to use. She wasn't sure if a lightweight rein is better so it doesn't drag on the nose. Is there any benefit to ropes with the slobber straps? Does that give a more effective signal?
Well, the reason I use slobber straps is because two reasons. One reason is because all my ropes tend to have no clips or ends on them. So if I want to use one of my halter lead ropes as a rein, I can just tie it through a little leather slobber strap. Two, the reason I like slobber straps is I don't like the tang of steel on steel, like a clip on a bit ring or a clip on a side pull ring. I just like that tangy steely feel. I just like a feel that doesn't have the steely tangy in it. So that's why I use the slobber strap. But if you look at my slobber straps, they're not big, heavy, bouncy, floppy slobber straps. They're only small ones that I can tie off to. So I've got a closer connection from the rope to the ring that it's attached to. And my ropes are not light. I don't like light reins that they can't feel the feel of it when you pick it up. But I don't like heavy reins that have got that weighted feel, that real heavy weighted feel. Just an in-between, like a nice, like the yachting rope that I use for the lead ropes. You can feel the weight of it pick up. You can pick the slobber strap up. The horse feels it. And it's got a nice, it doesn't bounce as much. It's just got a nice feel between my hand and the horse's head. I think it's each to their own, but I find too heavy can be a bit too much. Too light blows in the breeze too much. And I don't like the clang. So you just got to figure out which one you like. But also, I think that bit of advice about no clang and just the right weight will help a lot of horses.
Maybe even with that head toss.
Mm.
All right, thank you so much. We'll leave it there for this week. Thank you, Mark, for answering all those questions and for sending them through. We'll be back next week answering some more for you. See you then.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody.
If you'd like to help apply any of these ideas to your own horse, you can join Mark Langley online. The membership gives you access to Mark's full training library, detailed step-by-step exercises and regular Q&A support to help you better understand your horse's behaviour, training and emotional responses. It's designed to give people more practical, thoughtful solutions that help horses learn with confidence, softness and understanding. To find out more, head to marklangley.com.au and click join.